I think today I didn't really handle myself quite well, mentally, I would say. So basically that's it. I was just making unforced errors. Like, I don't know, I have to check the statistics. I think she won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes from, like, if you look from the outside, kind of like from an easy balls.
The tennis world has been turned upside down once again, and this time it has nothing to do with trophies, rankings, or rivalries between players on the court. This is about something much bigger than any of that. Coco Gauff has just revealed shocking remarks made by Aryna Sabalenka, remarks that the WTA would have very much preferred never became public. Fans are furious, players across the tour are divided, and staying silent is simply no longer an option for anyone involved. The question now sitting at the center of everything is whether the WTA will actually step up and take meaningful action in response to what has come out, or whether this will be quietly pushed aside and swept under the rug the way so many uncomfortable situations in professional tennis have been handled before. That is the conversation the entire tennis world is having right now, and it is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, that hurts. I mean, especially when you've been playing really great tennis during the whole week. You know, you've been playing against a lot of tough opponents, Olympic champion Iga, you know, and then you go out and you play really bad. Like, I don't know, I think if Iga would win me another day, I think she would go out today and she would get the win.
Because what began as a regular semifinal match between two of the WTA's top players, Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka, has turned into one of the ugliest controversies professional tennis has seen in years. The match took place at the Wuhan Open, in front of a packed arena, under bright lights, with two of the sport's fiercest competitors ready to go to battle. On paper, it had everything needed to be a classic match, but by the end of the night, nobody was talking about the rallies, the aces, or the final score. Everyone was talking about what Aryna Sabalenka said. At first, nobody noticed anything unusual. Cameras caught Aryna muttering something under her breath after missing a crucial point, and in the moment it looked like a perfectly normal reaction. Athletes express frustration during matches all the time, and it rarely means anything beyond that. But as clips of the moment started spreading across social media, fans began slowing down the audio, enhancing it, and replaying it over and over. And that is when everything changed. What Sabalenka had said was not simply a burst of frustration. Her words were racist, not coded, not open to interpretation, racist. Within hours, the internet exploded. Hashtags including Stand with Coco and Racism in Tennis began trending across platforms. Fans demanded answers and accountability. Players around the tour started unfollowing Sabalenka on social media. Commentators were visibly lost for words on live television. And the most shocking part of all was not what Sabalenka had said, but what the WTA did in response. Nothing. No statement, no comment, no acknowledgement that anything had even happened. Just complete and total silence.
Congratulations, Coco. When Aryna sat here, she said that she thinks if Iga had won her, she wins the thing today because of how the match turned up. Do you think the way you play today, you beat anyone? It doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net?
She said if Iga won, if I play Iga in the final.
She said that if we go, she didn't mention exactly winning you, but she said if Iga won me, she would won the thing.
I mean, I don't agree with that. I'm here sitting here, and last time I played, no, like to Iga or anything, but I played her and I won in straight sets. So, yeah, I don't think that's a fair thing to say.
It was as if the biggest women's tennis organization in the world had decided that if they simply ignored what happened, the storm would eventually blow over on its own. But this particular storm was not going anywhere. Coco Gauff, the face of the next generation of tennis, had just been disrespected in front of millions of people watching around the world, and everyone was waiting to see how she would respond. For the next 24 hours, Coco said absolutely nothing. No posts on social media, no interviews, not even a subtle story on Instagram. Just silence.
Some people assumed she was letting her public relations team figure out the best way to handle it. Others thought she was simply taking time to process what had happened. But deep down, most people who have followed Coco Gauff for any length of time already knew the truth. Coco does not speak until she is fully ready, and when she is ready, she makes sure people listen. And when she finally broke her silence, the entire tennis world stopped in its tracks.
Because anything can really happen. And yeah, honestly, I mean, the way Aryna was playing the last few weeks, she was the favorite to win. So I think she was the best person that I could have played in the final. Her being #1 in the world, she was the best person to play. So I think I got the hardest matchup just if you go off stats alone. Obviously, Iga being a champion here.
She walked into a packed press room and stood in front of the cameras looking completely calm, but absolutely firm. There were no tears, no visible anger, just a quiet and steady clarity about what she wanted to say. She opened with a single sentence that cut through everything. She said she was not there to start a war. She was there to ask for fairness. That one line landed harder than anything else that had been said throughout the entire controversy. Because in that moment, it became clear that this was no longer about drama or headlines. It was about respect. Coco continued speaking with the same measured composure. She said she had worked too hard to allow her identity to be reduced to a word or a stereotype, and that she deserved the same respect that any athlete deserves, nothing more and nothing less. The moment she finished speaking, the room went completely silent. Then came the applause. Even the reporters in the room, people who make a living chasing controversy and conflict, simply nodded. Because everyone present understood that what was happening in that press room was bigger than tennis. It was bigger than one match or one tournament or one heated moment caught on camera. And through all of it, Coco never once mentioned Aryna Sabalenka by name. She did not need to. Every single person in that room already knew exactly who she was talking about.
I mean, she's probably emotional about it, so I'm not going to take it with too much anything. And I do hope people give her a little bit of...
She walked into a packed press room and stood in front of the cameras looking completely calm, but absolutely firm. There were no tears, no visible anger, just a quiet and steady clarity about what she wanted to say. She opened with a single sentence that cut through everything. She said she was not there to start a war. She was there to ask for fairness. That one line landed harder than anything else that had been said throughout the entire controversy. Because in that moment, it became clear that this was no longer about drama or headlines. It was about respect. Coco continued speaking with the same measured composure. She said she had worked too hard to allow her identity to be reduced to a word or a stereotype, and that she deserved the same respect that any athlete deserves, nothing more and nothing less. The moment she finished speaking, the room went completely silent. Then came the applause. Even the reporters in the room, people who make a living chasing controversy and conflict, simply nodded. Because everyone present understood that what was happening in that press room was bigger than tennis. It was bigger than one match or one tournament or one heated moment caught on camera. And through all of it, Coco never once mentioned Aryna Sabalenka by name. She did not need to. Every single person in that room already knew exactly who she was talking about.
You talk about the power of social media to help tell your story, but do you think at the end of the day you're still a little bit misunderstood for who you are?
No, I think nowadays people know me as a player and as a person. Like, I feel like people know that, okay, of course she's aggressive, she's passionate, she's focused, and she's fighting for her dream, but also, of course, she's fun and she's nice, she's chill, and she's a completely different person. So I think now people knows me. Maybe like that little situation after French Open, some people don't really understand the intensity of everything, and that you lose the final of the biggest tournament, and then you go to the media straight away, and you're so frustrated, so like pissed on yourself, and you just trying to figure what just happened, and you don't think clean, and then you make this comment, and people go like, you know, like they forget completely about like who you are like the rest of the time.
That is what sets Coco Gauff apart from so many others. She did not lash out in anger. She did not post an emotional video online looking for sympathy. She simply told the truth, and she did it with complete class and dignity. That combination of honesty and composure is rare, and it is exactly what made her statement so powerful. But that is also where things started to get messy. Aryna Sabalenka's camp stayed completely silent for 2 full days after the story broke. Her agent declined to comment. Her coach was reportedly unavailable, and the WTA issued a statement saying only that the matter was under review, which in plain terms meant they had no idea how to handle what was in front of them and were hoping time would make it easier. By that point, however, the damage had already been done. Once the audio clip went viral and spread to every corner of the internet, people began digging deeper. Older interviews resurfaced. Past behavior was examined more closely. Previous comments that had once been brushed aside were now being looked at through a very different lens. Some of Sabalenka's supporters tried their best to defend her and explain away what had been heard. But for the vast majority of people following the story around the world, those defenses were simply not convincing enough.
See someone fail and you know, like take it as the main thing, you know. So after that, I also had to sit back and reflect on everything and apologize and make sure that people understand my point, that it was just, I was over emotional, I was completely wrong. So after that also took me a little while to explain myself a little bit better. But now I think people understand me even better. And also it was a tough lesson, but it helped me a lot in so many different ways. And right now I don't feel like people still misunderstand me. I feel like now they know me even better.
The truth is that you cannot accidentally say racist things. Pressure does not put words in your mouth that were never there to begin with. What pressure does is strip away the filter and let what is already inside come out. That is exactly why so many fans were angry, because the issue was never really about one single comment in isolation. It was about the attitude and the thinking that produced that comment in the first place. Meanwhile, Coco Gauff handled the entire situation the way a true professional handles adversity. Her coach, Diego Moyano, later revealed that Coco had cried after the match, not because she lost, but because she felt unseen and undervalued. He spoke about how hard she works and how deeply it affected her to feel like everything she had built and everything she was could be reduced to a single word. Even her parents were heartbroken, though they were equally proud of how she carried herself. Her mother reportedly told her that grace is not weakness, it is power under control. That message became Coco's guiding thought through everything that followed. The very next morning, she was back on the practice court. No interviews, no posts online seeking sympathy, just focus and hard work. A photo of her walking into the training center with her headphones on went viral almost immediately. The caption that spread with it said everything in a few words. She does not talk, she works. Then came Aryna Sabalenka's response, or more accurately, her near-total lack of one. After 3 full days of silence, she finally posted something on Instagram, and rather than helping the situation, it made things considerably worse. The post spoke vaguely about emotions running high during matches, about things being misunderstood, and about moving forward with respect. There was no genuine apology. There was no real acknowledgement of what she had said or the hurt it had caused. It was the kind of statement you put out when you were trying to make a problem go away without actually taking responsibility for it. Fans responded immediately and harshly. One comment pointed out that she had not apologized, but had simply reacted to getting caught. Another noted that after 3 days to think about what to say, the least she could have done was offer a straightforward sorry. Because when the damage is that serious, saying emotions were high simply does not come close to being enough, especially in a sport that presents itself to the world as graceful, classy, and built on mutual respect.
With the pressure mounting from every direction, the WTA eventually had no choice but to say something publicly. They released a one-paragraph statement explaining that the incident was being reviewed internally and that respect and inclusion were core values of the organization. It was the kind of corporate language that says a great deal while committing to absolutely nothing, and most people recognized it for exactly what it was. But tennis fans were not prepared to let the story die quietly. Players began choosing sides openly. Serena Williams, Billie Jean King, and Naomi Osaka all voiced their support for Coco, making clear that racism in tennis had been ignored for far too long and that enough was enough. Even Rafael Nadal weighed in on Instagram, writing that respect must come before rivalry and that Coco had handled herself like a true champion. That comment spread across the internet within minutes. Not everyone was in agreement, however. Some players, particularly from Eastern Europe, defended Sabalenka and suggested that her words may have been misunderstood or that the language barrier was a factor. But that argument did not hold up under public scrutiny for long, and most people following the story called it what it was, an excuse. As the days passed, the nature of the conversation began to shift. This was no longer simply a controversy between two tennis players. It had become a turning point for the sport itself. Behind the scenes, Coco's family was quietly holding her up through the chaos. Those close to the family described her as emotionally exhausted, but absolutely determined to not allow the moment to define who she was. Her father, Coco Gauff, told reporters that she was not just a great player, but a better person, and that her character would outlast any title she would ever win. And that is precisely what began to happen. Coco took the pain of what she had experienced and turned it into purpose. She started working with organizations focused on promoting equality in sport and education. She launched a campaign called Serve Right, built around the ideas of respect, fairness, and inclusion for young athletes everywhere. The slogan was simple and direct: fairness is not a favor, it is a right. The message spread fast and wide. Athletes from basketball, football, and track and field began posting in support. Schools and youth programs started using Serve Right as a teaching example about sportsmanship and human decency. Even the WTA was eventually forced to publicly acknowledge the movement and announce that they would begin implementing cultural awareness training for all players and staff, something they had avoided addressing for years. Everyone understood who had inspired that change. But it would be wrong to suggest that any of this suddenly made everything all right. Sabalenka's team continued their efforts at damage control, claiming she had reached out to Coco privately to apologize, though nobody ever confirmed whether that actually happened or what was said. In every interview that followed, journalists kept bringing the incident up and pushing Coco to respond. Each time she answered with the same calm and measured tone, saying she had said what she needed to say and that her focus was now on tennis. It was a masterclass in shutting something down firmly without feeding the drama any further. Because while Sabalenka was posting half-hearted statements and trying to manage her image, Coco was out on the court winning matches. She went all the way to the next Grand Slam and proved in the most direct way possible that she had the ability to turn pain into performance. That is when something deeper shifted in how people saw her. Fans began to realize that Coco Gauff was no longer simply a tennis player. She had become a voice. Every match she played felt like it carried a message. Every win felt like a statement about something larger than sport. People were not just cheering for her to lift trophies anymore. They were cheering for what she stood for: fairness, equality, and the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. Even critics had to admit that she was navigating the situation with more maturity and wisdom than most people twice her age would manage. In a later interview, when she was asked how she had managed to stay so calm through it all, she said something that stopped people in their tracks. She said her parents had taught her that silence can be louder than shouting, and that she had chosen to speak when it mattered most. She could have demanded bans or heavy fines. She could have gone to war publicly. Instead, she reminded everyone why she is respected, not just for how she plays tennis, but for who she is as a person. The weeks that followed were nothing short of chaotic behind the scenes. Sponsors began calling the WTA privately and demanding to know what was being done about the situation. Some went further and threatened to pull their advertising from future tournaments if the organization did not address the issue properly and visibly.
The pressure was no longer just public and social, it had become financial and commercial. Every major sports television program ran segments on what was being called the Gauff-Sabalenka controversy. Panels debated whether Sabalenka's comments had been intentional or misinterpreted. But regardless of how the conversation was framed, the outcome was the same every time. Sabalenka's public image was deteriorating, while Coco's reputation was growing stronger by the day. The deep irony in all of this was that Coco had never tried to destroy anyone. She had not called for suspensions or demanded punishments. She had simply told the truth and gone back to work, and that straightforward approach was precisely what brought the public fully and completely to her side. People respond to quiet strength in a way they never respond to loud accusations. Sabalenka's team kept trying to repair the damage with carefully managed interviews and social media posts about learning and growing, but the internet has a long memory. Every time she stepped onto a court, the crowd told the story. Some applauded politely, others did not applaud at all. There was an awkward moment at the next tournament when both players were scheduled for press appearances on the same day. Reporters tried to create tension by asking Coco whether they had spoken since the incident. She simply smiled and said they were all professionals and that she was focused on her game. It was short, it was dignified, and it was completely impossible to argue with. Sabalenka's answers in comparison felt rehearsed and hollow, the kind of words someone says because they've been told to, not because they genuinely feel them. While Sabalenka struggled to find her footing publicly, Coco was quietly building something that would last far longer than any controversy. Her Serve Right campaign grew into a genuine movement. Children began posting photos of themselves holding rackets and wearing shirts printed with the slogan. Schools adopted her story as a lesson in sportsmanship and the meaning of respect. Players who had once stayed silent on the subject of racism in tennis began resharing her message. What had started as one of the most painful moments of her career had transformed into something with real and lasting impact. The WTA announced mandatory cultural awareness and respect training for all athletes as a direct result of the pressure that followed. When reporters asked Coco what she thought about the new requirement, she gave the kind of answer that has come to define how the world sees her. She said progress is slow, but it is still progress. Humble, clear, and always looking at the bigger picture. When she eventually lifted the Miami Open trophy, the moment carried a weight that went far beyond the match itself. She looked into the camera and said winning is great, but that standing for something bigger than yourself is what truly lasts. And in that single moment, Coco Gauff turned one of the ugliest experiences of her career into a permanent reminder that dignity, handled quietly and consistently, will always win in the end.